My name is Mark, and I'm a co-host on the Oregon Files podcast, and we would love for you to give us a listen. We don't cuss and we don't discuss politics, so that's a win right there. We are based in Roseburg, Oregon, and cover everything from Bigfoot to buried treasures, UFOs, to interviews with amazing people who have a story to tell. Now my co-host, Elliot Bowman.
Thank you, Mark. We would appreciate your listen. If you feel you got a story to be immortalized on a podcast and have it shared on YouTube, Audible, wherever you get your podcasts, reach out to us on Oregon Files Podcast at yahoo.com or on Instagram or Facebook on our website, www.theoregonfilespodcast.com.
Nailed it.
Cheers.
Writing the West. Stories and poems by Rick Steber. Read by Michael Messner and friends. Confession. The old man whispered to the doctor of a small Nebraska town,
"Doc, any chance I'll pull through?"
The doctor looked very somber and shook his head. The old man said,
"Well, in that case, I better confess. Been eating at me better'n 30 years. Oh, I gotta get it off my chest. It happened way out in Idaho. It started on the way back to our mine. A mule freighter sold us a jug of whiskey, and I had 3 partners. One was a rough customer, claimed he had done a long stretch in jail. And the 4 of us drank on that jug as we rode. And by the time we reached the trading post at Rock Springs, the jug was gone, and we was wanting some more. I knew the owner of the trading post, Hugh Quinn. He was a quiet man, never carried a gun. "I ain't got no liquor," he told us and shrugged. "Can't sell something I don't have none of."
"You got a jug, don't you? Give it up,"
demanded my partner, the one who done time, you know. And he drew his pistol, and he pointed to that Quinn. I thought it was just to scare him, and I never dreamed. He killed Quinn, shot him down. Well, that sobered me up in a hurry. Sobered up the others, too. We talked about what to do and come up with a plan to scatter merchandise around and make it appear a mighty struggle had taken place. And then we rode away, each in a separate direction. Oh, dear God, I'm sorry for what I done. Don't punish me no more.
The old man closed his eyes, and then he died. Mountain fever. It was called mountain fever, and it spelled suffering, agony, and death for the native population of the Northwest. Between the years 1829 and 1832, an estimated 30,000 Native Americans died from mountain fever. At the village of Wakanasi, 6 miles from Fort Vancouver, the dead were heaped in a ghastly open tomb 6 feet deep and 160 feet long. Within 3 weeks of the first outbreak of sickness, the tribe, which had once boasted 500 warriors, was reduced to 7 survivors. David McLaughlin, son of Dr. John McLaughlin, chief factor of the Hudson's Bay Company at Fort Vancouver, wrote of the horrible scene he witnessed.
"Once there were villages along the Columbia all the way from the sea to the Cascades. All these plains were covered with teepees, and warriors came dashing down these hills. Where are they now? A typhoid malaria came shortly after the first plowing of fields at Fort Vancouver, and the Indians died by the hundreds and by the thousands. A quietness came over the land. No more Indian shouts and halloos and games of ball. No more Indians came up to Fort Vancouver with furs. There was a stench from all the waters, and buzzards hovered in the sky. The bones were corded up like wood and burned in great funeral pyres.
According to McLaughlin, the streams were filled with corpses that floated out to sea. For always in the fever, the natives leaped into the cold Columbia and never lived to reach shore. The Oregon country was depopulated. Roads. A road might take you to where you want to go, might bend and stretch and lay flat, chase the faraway concept of infinity, come to a jarring end at a forest landing. A road can go over a hill or through a creek, take you one place and deliver you to the next. But there are no roads or maps that will transport you to the unknown place called happiness, where you need to be. Fate of the Tonquin. John Jacob Astor established the Pacific Fur Company, and to assure its success, he sent 2 expeditions to the West Coast, one by land and the other by sea. His ship, the Tonquin, departed from New York, sailed south, rounded the Horn, and arrived at the mouth of the Columbia River on March 11, 1811. The Tonquin unloaded a detachment of men to begin building Fort Astoria and continued north up the coast. The following story was told by a Chinook, an eyewitness named Lamaze.
We remained in a harbor on Vancouver Island for some days. Indians going and coming, but not much trade. One day, Indians came on board in great numbers, but did not trade much, although they had plenty of skins. The prices offered did not please the Indians, so they carried back their furs. Next day, the Indians came off to trade in great numbers. On their coming alongside, the captain ordered the boarding netting to be put around the ship, and would not allow more than 10 on board at a time. But just as the trade had commenced, an Indian was detected cutting the boarding netting with a knife. On being detected, he instantly jumped into one of the canoes which were alongside and made his escape. Next day, the offender was brought to the ship and delivered up. Indians began to flock about the ship with their naked knives and horrid yells, and in 5 minutes, the vessel was their own.
The witness went on to say that the ship blew up in the air with a fearful explosion, filling the whole place with broken fragments and mutilated bodies. Stephen Weeks, the armorer, must have been the man who blew up the ship and all that remained. And by that awful act of revenge, the crew, as well as 175 natives, perished. Outlaw Roots. Many of the Western outlaws had their roots in the Civil War. As victory in that bitter conflict swung toward the Union forces, Confederate troops broke away rather than surrender. These renegade bands continued fighting, harassing Northern troops whenever they could, as well as attacking unprotected frontier settlements and killing those who held allegiance to the Union. One infamous raid occurred in August 1863 when 450 raiders led by William Quantrill swept into Lawrence, Kansas, a well-known Union settlement. The town was burned to the ground and 150 civilians were murdered. Another notorious group was Anderson's Raiders, named after the leader, Bloody Bill Anderson. In 1864, the Raiders, numbering 225, attacked Centralia, Missouri. They pillaged the town and ambushed the train when it arrived. 25 Union soldiers were gunned down. Passengers were robbed and $3,000 was stolen from the express car. The Civil War ended, but there was no turning back for the renegade soldiers. They survived because they had the support of the residents living on the frontier. Many of them were former Confederate soldiers who had returned home and found their farms and families ravaged by the war. The outlaw gangs rode against the tight-fisted banks, the rich stagecoach lines, and monopolistic railroad companies. They became heroes to the legion of more peaceful men who admired the rebellious nature of the gunfighters. Slowly, local residents rebuilt their lives and resumed farming. Roads and rails tied remote settlements together, and residents of those towns became civilized. Their opinions and sentiments changed. The wild element was no longer to be tolerated, and the outlaw was pushed farther west until finally no place existed in society for the gunfighter.
You've been listening to Writing the West. The stories and poetry in this podcast are by Rick Steber and appear in Books by Him. Log on to www.ricksteberauthor.com to find out more. This program was produced by Michael Messner by permission of the author. Special thanks to Michael Tucker, Rachel Pulliam, and Art Shingler. Thank you for listening.